Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Cody Rhodes to my CM Punk. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Justin, how the devil are we?
I'm fantastic. I am fantastic because we've obviously got this full weekend of football, and I think that's the main thing. Because I alluded to the international break in midweek, and it's the boring international break where none of the teams care. But now we're getting into the festive period of football, and there's nothing better, I don't think, because it's just game, and drama, and we love it. We love it.
Yeah. It's a lot of work for us, but this is
worth it.
This is what the Championship is all about, isn't it? This festive period where you've got games basically every second. You just turn around and suddenly there's a game in your face right there, and then you turn around and there's another game over there just coming at you rapidly. It's just frightening, Justin.
Just always one lurking around the corner, like a creepy Shia LaBeouf, just staring at you at a crossroads. It's incredible.
That's such a rogue reference. If you didn't know the conversation that we had literally just before recording. Before recording, we were talking about a video on YouTube where Shia LaBeouf is staring at someone from his car, and it's one of the strangest videos ever. But I implore every listener to watch it because it's truly one of the strangest things ever. Anyway, welcome to the number one Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, what a weekend of football it has been in the Championship, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go through all the games from the past weekend, then we'll finish up with the polls and Sam Grayson's Hateful Eight right at the end of the show. And we'll kick things off with goals from Darnell Furlong and Grady Diangana, which saw West Brom win 2-0 against Ipswich. Jacob's three-word review: outplayed the Ipswich. Dylan's three-word review: happy fucking days. Sunil says Carlos Corberán masterclass. James's three-word review for Ipswich: forget that one. Justin, I thought this was a tactical masterclass from Carlos Corberán, much to what Sunil was just saying. It truly was Carlos Corberán ball at its best.
I think that's the key statement there. It's Corberán ball at its best. I don't think it's a tactical masterclass. It's just how well his teams are always set up. And whilst I do agree with the statement that it's a tactical masterclass, I think most of his wins are just tactically so advanced and so ahead of his opposition teams that it just looks like it's the masterclass. When actually, I think the masterclass is how consistently he does it. Because I don't think West Brom play a particularly special way. They're not a sexy footballing team. They're organised, they're disciplined, and they pick their moments so well. And I think when you get players to buy into that, I think it's harder to do that than to get them to play nice, sexy football, as Wayne Rooney's finding out at Birmingham, for example. I think this is a much more difficult thing to do, and I think that goes a long way to encouraging and praising the job that Corberán is doing on a weekly basis. And this win just exemplifies it. It was brilliant. They shut down Ipswich at every opportunity, and it's a real statement win for West Brom. It's one of those wins where you go, oh, actually no, these definitely should be in the conversation, because they've got 8 clean sheets for the season. They've picked up 22 points in 12 games since the first international break in September. They're on a roll.
Yeah, you bang on the money there, Justin, and you're right. They did shut down Ipswich, and lest we forget, Ipswich have been arguably the best attacking team in the division so far this season, which is incredibly impressive from a West Brom perspective. And it's the first time Ipswich have failed to score since February, which shows it's quite the mean feat from Carlos Corberán's big bad baggies. And, you know, the thing is with Corberán, he's getting the most out of a team which is essentially made up of misfits, really, isn't it? You know, Alex Mowat, for example, has been brilliant recently. West Brom sent him out on loan last season. He wasn't getting a game at Middlesbrough. So that just goes to show what he's doing there. Grady Diangana is showing his best form in years. These are just key components which shows how remarkable a job Corberán is doing. And, you know, considering everything that's going on off the pitch, they don't really have the right to do as well as they are, do they?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They've not been able to recruit as extensively as they needed to, and he's had to get more out of players who have been out of form for a while. You look at Grady Diangana, who's a key example of it. He's not been in form for literally 3 years since Slaven Bilic since Bilic took West Brom up at the first time, and he's getting back to his best, and it's so good to see. And then you've got the likes of Darnell Furlong as well, who I think has gone under the radar this season because he's been brilliant. He's finding himself in really good goal scoring positions. Probably not the player you want to be in those positions, but I mean, he took his chance against Ipswich. Matty Phillips as well is another one. They're just players that you thought were at the end of their cycle at West Brom, but Corberán's getting more out of them. And that's what he does. Look at what he did with Huddersfield. It's just what he does. He gets more out of players that, quite frankly, should be on the way down the leagues rather than staying in the Championship.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been surprised to see them, finish around 18th this season because of everything that was going on off the pitch. But here they are, and they look like genuine playoff contenders. It's absolutely brilliant what Corberan is doing. I was speaking to a guy once who said to me, at this stage in the season, goal difference is a good indicator of how good a team is. I'm not sure how true that is, but if there is some truth to it, then they're not far off Leeds and Southampton. Well, I think they're better than Southampton in terms of goal difference. So if that has some meaning to it, then look at West Brom, look what they're doing. It is just Ipswich's second loss of the season. Quite surprising, really, to see Ipswich show as little as they did. Full credit to West Brom completely shutting them down, but on just about every occasion this season, they've found a way through teams. That wasn't the case here. They simply didn't have an answer for West Brom, and all of a sudden, it's 1 win and 4 for them, which seemed unthinkable not too long ago. The Ipswich going up tractor is hitting its first speed bump, Justin.
Yeah, they've ploughed through a cable in a field, haven't they? And everything's just gone a bit tits up ever so slightly.
Would that happen to a tractor? What if it went over a cable?
Or not a cable, but they've gone into like one of those telephone barges, the things that hold the telephone cables up.
That would be quite... No, it's not that bad. That would be like cataclysmic, Justin.
That's one end of the spectrum. They've ploughed over an internet cable and they just cut the internet off for a row of houses. Very disappointing. It can be fixed. It's not an issue. I'm too deep in this metaphor now.
I don't know what the perfect metaphor would be for this, but yeah, I get the point. Carry on.
It was a disappointing performance. Attacks broke down. And I think that's more so the fact that West Brom was so organised and looked good, but also Ipswich were really sloppy, but not just sloppy in going forwards, but also being organised at the back. There was a moment, I think, in the first half where Luke Wolfenden scuffs a clearance, and I can't remember who the other defender was, but he didn't get it clear, and it just wasn't a great showing. It was one of those games where they just looked sluggish straight after the international break, and conceding 2 goals again isn't ideal. Conceding from your first set piece in the game isn't ideal. There's a lot of things that I think Kieran McKenna needs to work on with this team. They are a work in progress, and I think we all need to recognise that rather than getting too carried away like some people.
Some people may.
I'm not pointing fingers, but Schmei and Dilks sort of thing.
They still have had one of the best starts in Championship history, so I think there's reason to be excited, Justin. Jesus Christ.
They deserve credit, but it's tempered credit.
All right, bloody hell. Talk about dampening the mood. The thing is with Ipswich, they haven't found scoring goals to be a problem at all, have they? It's how leaky at the back they've been, which has been the big issue. They've conceded 2 or more goals in the last 6 games now, and it didn't really matter previously how many they were conceding because they would just simply outscore teams. But if they're having problems at both ends of the pitch, then it goes without saying that's a huge worry. So I'm not totally worried. It is just 1 game. However, they have got a very tricky Christmas period coming up. And I mean, it's huge, really, in the grand scheme of the promotion campaign. They need to pick up some speed before heading into it. I think that goes without saying, really. On Friday night, Leeds were held to a 1-1 draw away at Rotherham. Leeds has a 3-word review for, you guessed it, Leeds. Lacklustre, wasteful, unfortunate. Darren's is should do better. And Justin Peach chose this as his banker in midweek and said if Leeds don't win, he'd be very confident in saying they won't get the top 2. So I guess in that case, congratulations to Leicester and Ipswich.
I think in the context of that statement, I was probably looking at an Ipswich result. But so I guess Leeds are quite lucky that they lost. But my point on this being a game that Leeds need to win is based purely on making sure dropping teams to points that have won just 2 games all season like Rotherham have doesn't bite you on the arse come May. These are the winnable games. These are the quote-unquote bankable 3 points. And I know things are bankable in the Championship, but as I say, Rotherham have won 2 games all season. They're not a team that are going to create too many threats against you. And yes, there are 25 plus games left. But if you miss out on the automatics by 1 point, guess what? You'll look back and go, Christ, we should have beat Rotherham in November. That was a winnable game and we missed out. It falls down to that. And Daniel Farke was seething as well. He knows the importance of winning these types of games. He did it with Norwich. He knows what the minerals you need to have to win promotion. And Leeds are just falling short in these types of games where they fall short of expectation. And I'll disagree with some of the statements from the Leeds supporters. I think they were unfortunate. I don't think it's a disaster because they created a lot of chances. They were just wasteful.
Yeah, they were the better team, weren't they? In fact, I don't think they were particularly wasteful, to be honest, because in the second half they didn't really create a substantial chance. They had plenty of efforts on goal. First half they did, yeah, but the second half they had plenty of efforts on goal, but there wasn't a moment where I thought they should have scored there. So this is the thing that is proving to be Leeds' biggest problem. Every 1 in 5 games, they put in a performance which isn't up to the standard of what we know it can be. And in normal seasons, that'll be fine. You could get away with, having a drop off 1 in every 5 games. You can usually afford to get away with that. But because the top two have been so ruthless, it's costing them. As we're seeing, Ipswich and Leicester haven't been amazing in every game, but the difference is they've still managed to win more often than not when they haven't been playing well. Leeds have struggled to do that a lot more. At the other end of the spectrum, we've seen loads of top gear performances from Leeds, more than we've seen from Leeds than Ipswich and Leicester. But it doesn't necessarily matter if you're not winning games where you haven't played well. And that's what gets you promoted, isn't it? It's winning games when you're not playing very well. And Leeds are struggling with that a lot more than the top two.
Well, it's about forming good habits. And this is why, again, the importance of this game coming straight after the November international break. You're coming into the festive period where, I don't know how many games there are, but you play 7 or 8 games in December. It's a lot of games, and winning is a good habit to have going into that festive period. It just breeds good habits and good things and positivity, and it becomes an easy thing. It becomes a second nature aspect. And if you're stumbling into this festive period, then it's just not an ideal position to be in. We've seen teams lose out after making good starts. Blackburn last season, for example, are a really good point to make. Is they had a really good sort of first third of the season, got to the festive period, and dropped off massively. And it could be the make or break for a lot of teams. So winning games now, winning the winnable games now, is an absolute must.
Yeah, well, goes without saying, doesn't it? I mean, let's look at the promotion race, Justin. We'll talk about Leicester very shortly, but this result leaves Leeds 7 points off Ipswich in second. How's that promotion race looking in your eyes as things stand, Justin?
Well, I mean, the context of it changes because Ipswich lost, and it does leave the top two still in the sights of Leeds, and obviously Southampton dropping points helps as well. But I reiterate, it's quite hard to form that judgment after what was a relatively disappointing performance against Rotherham, in that you didn't seize your opportunity when you needed to. So if they repeat that performance again and again and again, then I will start to lose faith. But I think the key thing here is Leeds have got, or I assume they've got money to spend in January, because they've made a fair bit of money in the summer, and they still have holes in their squad that they probably need to shore up and add depth to. And I think adding another striker in the team won't be a bad thing. I think adding another playmaker in that final third as well will go a long way. So they've got a big period of games coming up ahead of a big January where they're one of the teams that are will benefit from adding to the squad because they've got the money to do so.
Well, Ipswich could very well strengthen in January as well. Exactly. I don't think we should rule that out. I think, even though you said the promotion race was over after this result, Justin, if the Leeds didn't beat Rotherham, I'm willing to give them a bit more time. I think I agree with you. I think the Christmas period is key for both teams, really. Ipswich have a run of games which is going to be a real test of their promotion credentials, because it is rough. And Leeds have some tricky games too, including Ipswich, worth mentioning. And if they're going to go up, this is what they've got to make the most of. It's going to be a mouth-watering few weeks coming up for both these two teams. And come the end of the month, it may very well be a good indication of where these two are going to be come the end of the season. Cracking result for Rotherham. Let's not take that away from them. They've now taken points off Leeds, Ipswich and Southampton. However, they've also lost to Sheffield Wednesday and Huddersfield, so that says a lot about Rotherham, doesn't it? Reports expect Rotherham to appoint their new manager this week, Justin. What does the new man have to do to keep Rotherham United up?
Fantastic question. I mean, there's a lot. Let's be honest, there is quite a lot that needs to be done. First thing would be limiting the amount of chances opposition get against them. Second half in the Leeds game, for example, Rotherham did impress me, but the first half, too often Leeds glided through them with a lot of ease. They have to be better organised out of possession and give Victor Johansson quieter evenings. It'd be nice for him to just have a relaxing one for a change rather than really earn his money. Because if he's not the highest paid player in that squad come his next contract, then something's gone wrong there, because he's single-handedly keeping Rotherham in the fight. And going forward as well, I think they will always be limited just because of the lack of quality they have in abundance. But they've got players with strengths that can exploit opposition teams. Look at Sam Nombe against Leeds, found space in behind the Leeds back line quite a few times. It's just that little bit of quality missing. If they have a similar January to last season, I think they have a chance under a new manager.
Yeah, well, that January is going to be huge for them because they didn't have a great summer transfer window. And that's my big issue with Rotherham, because the squad is just so weak. I think the result against Leeds showed there is something to work with there. Christian Thiehi, I think, is a very good player. I thought Ollie Rathbone had a good game. Fred Onyedinma is an outlet. It's definitely one of the weakest squads in the league, but it's not impossible for them to stay up, without a doubt. The big problem is, and this is kind of stating the obvious, is winning games. No team has stayed up having won fewer than 10 games. And Rotherham are on 2 wins, and we're more than a third of the way through the season. So they're proven to be good at grinding out points, but winning games still seems like a long way off, and it's looked a long way off for pretty much all season, hasn't it? And that's the big issue for Rotherham. Yeah. Huddersfield 1, Southampton 1. Great result for Huddersfield. The same cannot be said about Southampton. Very much 2 points drop from their perspective, especially after being a goal in front. Leaves them a point behind Leeds. Let's talk about the side who are very much the winners of the weekend with regards to the promotion race. And it was Jamie Vardy. A double from him saw Leicester get back on track with a 2-0 win at home to Watford. Dr. Catford's 3-word review: the GOAT strikes again. And Justin Peach criticised me in midweek for saying this was an obvious banker and that Leeds against Rotherham was more obvious. Oh dear. And we saw, Justin, one of the greatest sights in football in this game, didn't we? An outfielder in goal. Nothing gets me more excited, I don't think. Watford defender Ryan Porteous went between the sticks after Daniel Bachmann was sent off. And honestly, is there anything more exciting than that?
I don't think there isn't, and let me give you some stats. I'll ask a question actually. Statistically, what's more likely to happen? Are you more likely to see an outfield player in goal at your club, or are you more likely to walk on the moon, or even win Takeshi's Castle?
Oh, I don't know. I would assume it's more likely to see an outfielder in goal, wouldn't it?
Well, I could only find 3 outfielders going in goal in the Championship: Pontus Jansson, Robbie Savage.
Hang on. Paul Gallagher?
He wasn't on my list, but I can't remember the exact game. Okay, it's 4, but it's still way below my list.
Than that. Come on.
In the Championship,
if you're going to come here, Justin, throwing stats at me, at least get it right.
Listen. 12 people have walked on the moon. 8 people have won Takeshi's Castle, and at the moment,
walked on the moon.
12 people have walked on the moon.
That doesn't sound right.
Listen. It sounds like you're a conspiracy theorist right now.
That doesn't sound correct to me, but I don't know enough about the subject to disprove it.
And 8 people have won Takeshi's Castle, by the way, which absolutely blew my mind, more so than the people walking on the moon. And by our recollection now, 6 outfield players have gone in goal for Championship sides. Okay.
Thank you for getting there eventually. Still not sure if any of what you just said was correct, but we're providing it as fact at this point.
It's me.
Let's be honest, Leicester really should have won this sooner and by more. They weren't just knocking on the door for ages, were they? They were essentially kicking the windows in. Did you see Jamie Vardy punching himself in the face after missing a gilt-edged chance? He didn't hold back either, did he? He really walloped himself.
Yeah. Can you knock yourself out? You certainly can.
I've seen it. I've seen YouTube videos of it happening. Carry on.
Oh wow. I don't know where to go from there, but it's just peak Jamie Vardy. I mean, the goals that he scored were peak Jamie Vardy. The poacher's effort from was it a corner or a cross where he basically had to tap it at the far post, and obviously the penalty as well, and then punching himself in the face. And
then he scored moments afterwards.
Exactly. We're just a Red Bull. What was his concoction of drinks? Red Bull. Sort of ridiculous. Red Bull bag of Skittles or what have you.
Yeah.
We're just that. We're just a Skittle bomb. For a game. That's
hey, Justin, he punches himself in the face. You don't know what his methods are.
It's clearly worked, hasn't it? Because he's one of the greatest English goal scorers in Premier League history. So
exactly,
there we go.
One of the greatest goal scorers in Premier League history. Doesn't matter what nationality is. Of course, Leicester had the 2 losses, didn't they? But they're now back on the winning trail, and it is worth remembering that despite those 2 losses, they're still having the best start ever in Championship history. They've won more points than any other side after 17 games. So, despite having a wobble, they're still on course for a record-breaking season. And compared to their promotion rivals, Leicester have actually got a relatively kind run of fixtures over the Christmas period, which seems surprising. So do you think we're about to see normal service resuming with Leicester, just beating everyone relatively comfortably, Justin?
Relatively comfortably. I mean, this was an awkward game for them, wasn't it? Obviously, they had two previous awkward games in Middlesbrough and Leeds, and they took their chances.
I get what you're saying. It was as comfortable as it can be when scoring in the 70th minute.
Well, that's just Leicester this season, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the annoying thing about them is we know that they've got more gears to go through. They're not going into those gears. They're just sitting in second and third gear at the moment. It's like, just lift, take your foot off the clutch, put your foot down, let's go, let's see what this team can do. And maybe this period of games is the exact moment to do it, or maybe this period of games is when complacency sets in. It's going to be a real test of Maresca and his inexperience and his ability to really drill into this squad, and let's get more out of them. We want to see more. We all need to see more, and I think that's when I'm going to be really convinced that this Leicester team can run away with the league. Because at the minute I'm still holding back because I think Leicester are holding back. As simple as that.
You're holding back still? Sure. Well, will you concede that promotion is fairly inevitable for Leicester?
Yeah, I will concede that. I think the squad's far too good, and they've got far too much individual quality within their team to really let it slip. And they've got a coach with really good ideas, but they're just not really drawing me in or pulling me in and going, just grab me by the scruff of the neck or by the scruff of my t-shirt and pull me in and say we're getting promoted, and then throw me to the ground. Just be a bit more aggressive.
Kinky.
Yeah, just be aggressive. Look, come on, let's see it. Let's see what you've got.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but it is worth remembering as well, when we were talking about this earlier, with Leeds and Ipswich probably will be strengthening in January. I imagine Leicester will as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what Leicester do in January, but if they're going to strengthen even more on what is an already incredibly strong squad, then that is frightening for the rest of the Championship, and that's why I'm still quite of the belief that Leicester will probably win the league at a canter as things stand.
Yeah. We've not seen Daddy Leicester yet. That's what it is.
Not seen who?
Daddy Leicester.
God, how has this chat got so kinky so quickly? It's unbelievable. Quick word on Watford. This was their first loss in 7 games. They sit 15th after this defeat. Elton John has called for Vardy and Ishmael to be given time and for Watford to stop hiring and firing managers. I tried to come up with some Elton John puns for this discussion, but it's surprisingly hard. Not many of his songs work here. However, if Watford don't give him time, they'll be sorry, and that always seems to be the hardest word.
I also try to fit in puns and again find it difficult. It's great tracks, but terrible pun potential. But
I mean, ultimately, Justin, what we want to see is, come the end of the season, Vardy and Ishmael in the dugout, still standing.
You complete the circle of life at Watford.
Yes,
although that does result in the sack, I think.
At Watford, it definitely does. The point is, Elton John's right, isn't he?
Well, he is, and it's incredible that a 76-year-old musician speaks so much sense. But he's right. He's got experience of owning the football club. I mean, the importance of putting faith in a manager, given his relationship and success with Graham Taylor, he knows what he's talking about. And granted, football's changed since that period, but he's right. We all know he's right. I mean, Watford, I think, agree with him because they offered Ishmael a new contract, even though they didn't really need to. But maybe they're turning a corner. Maybe they're trying to think of a Elton John song.
Yeah,
not
just
coming.
Give up.
Not
it's
coming.
not happening. Yeah, it's a long yellow brick road.
That's the best one.
It's a slow process, isn't it? And it's been a very slow process so far. And if we're being completely honest, I reckon in previous seasons, if Ishmael was in charge, he probably would have been sacked by now, as is the life of being a Watford fan. So I'm glad to see they're sticking with him. Will he be a success at Watford? I don't know. But I think they're more likely to find success in the long term by standing by a manager instead of having a new one every few months. So believe in Elton John. He knows what he's talking about. Wayne Rooney got his first win as Birmingham manager with a 2-1 victory at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Jordan James got the winner, and he's a young lad getting a lot of admirers, isn't he, Justin?
Quite right as well. I mean, Rob Page, Wales manager Rob Page, spoke very highly of him after the international break, and I mean, he did say that he might follow the same path, or he backs him to follow the same path as Jude Bellingham, which is quite a stretch because obviously Jude Bellingham's now playing for Real Madrid, but there's a lot of quality in Jordan James. He's obviously clearly got plenty of abilities in all action midfield, and he's got maturity to put his foot on the ball and not panic and make the right decisions. He showed that with his goal. It was such a good goal when he basically starting the move off, driving forward into the box and following up his finish. He's a good player. He needs to start more.
Yeah, well, it's strange actually because he's actually started more games this season for Wales than he has for Birmingham in the league. Which, how often does that happen? It's pretty insane, really. But he probably should be starting more games. I don't know who you drop for him to get into the side. I suppose that is one question. But he looks a very promising talent, and he's an exciting player off the Blues production line, which has been very productive in recent years, as we all know. A much-needed result for Birmingham and Wayne Rooney and the club hierarchy. If they didn't win here, then I think the panic alarms would have been ringing, wouldn't they? Which is why I was quite alarmed when they went 1-0 down.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a convincing performance throughout the 90 minutes, but as winning breeds confidence, confidence breeds positivity, positivity breeds results. It all starts with a win, doesn't it? And it's a massive weight lifted off Rooney's shoulders, off the club's shoulders, and hopefully we see them kick on. But performances do need to improve, because if Wednesday were a little bit more productive in that final third and took their chances, where they could have been 2-0 up in the first half, if they took their chances, it could have been a completely different game and a completely different spectacle, because Birmingham City just were not good enough in the first half. So a lot needs to be worked on, but as I say, winning breeds confidence, and that's where you need to start.
Yeah, and they were sliding down the table at a rather alarming rate, weren't they? If things didn't sort themselves out, then it would have been quite an embarrassing season for Birmingham. Still may end up being quite an embarrassing season because, let's be honest, it wasn't the most convincing win against the worst team in the division so far. So I wouldn't say that's a corner turned. I think we need to see a lot more convincing before we can say that. But they've got some winnable games coming up, so we'll wait patiently to see if Rooney can build some momentum. I like his beard, by the way. Grey and red. That's hopefully what I'm going to have at some point.
Maybe the same number of hair transplants as well at your going rate.
I'm seriously considering it. Sheffield Wednesday stuck on 6 points, continue to be the joint worst start in Championship history, only matched by the Rotherham side of 2004-05, who finished the season with 29 points, the third lowest points tally ever. Wednesday are playing better under Danny Rule, aren't they, Justin? But it's just not happening yet, is it? He just cannot get the ball rolling.
Why'd you bring the mood, not the mood, the tone down?
I think I'm improving it personally. Please talk about Danny Rule.
I will do, and I'll ignore the absolutely dreadful pun. That would have made me laugh 3 weeks ago, but I thought we'd passed that point now. I think the key thing here is the performances are improving. Obviously, Wednesday don't need good performances. They need results at this point. They're in a desperate situation because of really poor decision-making from higher up than Danny Rule, but we're seeing a lot more from this Wednesday side, and I think he pretty much nailed it in his post-match presser. He described the team as one that doesn't look like they're performing, not performing like a bottom of the table side, they're more of a mid-table side. And I can't disagree with any of that, but at the end of the day, the point I was making earlier, game was 0-0. Josh Windass misses a gilt-edged chance from a wonderful cross from Barry Bannon. It's a sort of quality they're missing. They could have been 2-0 up going into the second half if that was put away. It's frustrating, but it's a step forward. But they need strides forward rather than steps, don't they?
Oh, they need leaps forward, really, don't they? You are right. I wouldn't go as far to say with what Danny Rule was saying, a mid-table side. I think that's quite a stretch, but they have been extremely unlucky recently. I don't think 5 losses from 6 games reflects how they've been playing at all. It's much better than it was under Isker Munoz. Admittedly, that was a very low bar to begin with, but it's miles better than that. So Danny Rule deserves a lot of credit in that respect. Just quickly, Justin, what percentage chance would you give them of staying up at this point? Is it even ridiculous to consider that?
15%.
I think even that's quite high, really, isn't it?
I'm thinking more towards that maybe that Danny Rule will be able to bring in a couple of players in January that will really improve them, and I'm thinking that it could be a 4-way tie between Huddersfield, QPR, Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday, and I think the points tally between those teams will be quite tight come the end of January, and it'll be a bit of a slog match between them as to who stays up. So it's low, it's low, but Danny Raw has given me something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd be surprised personally if Wednesday managed to take it down to the last few games of the season with regards to their chances of staying up, just because I think they're so far gone already. Yeah. So it's going to be very difficult. I would probably go personally around 10%, maybe even lower than that. So it's very tricky to see it happening, but the standard of the bottom four is quite poor this season. We'll get onto that very shortly. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about Cardiff with an incredible comeback at Deepdale. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Just some breaking news from our perspective. Just as we were recording, we just heard that Terry Venables has died, which is just tragic news. He's been out of the game for a while, hasn't he, Justin? We were just talking about that in the break. But yeah, English football has lost a great of the game. He's a very good coach, wasn't he? Barcelona at one point.
Yeah, very good coach and quite highly regarded human being, I guess. And obviously, managed that England side in '96. Again, a bit before our time, but the stories and happiness from that tournament was quite incredible. And only a whisker away from the final and great in history. But yeah, one of football's good men, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. He was a bit before our time, but always heard a lot of good things said about El Tel. It's very sad news. Let's get back to the Championship, and Cardiff were 1-0 down against Preston in the 94th minute and still won. They scored 2 goals in injury time to take 3 points away from Deepdale. Jack's 3-word review for Cardiff: smash and grab. And you know what? That's probably the most apt way of putting it.
Well, when you score that late as well, after a team goes down to 10 men, and obviously Preston trying to see the game out, maybe waste a bit of time, it's always going to be an absolute bonkers final. But I think the quality, especially with that Ugbo goal, I think needs a lot of credit, because that cross from Ryan Wintle was absolutely superb. That late in the game, when you're tired, when you've been drilling opposition for as long as you have, and then the header from Ugbo was superb. Just that belief to stay in the game is, I think, that late and to keep going, to keep plugging away is a very difficult thing to do. So a lot of credit there for Cardiff, because it's a game that could have fizzled out very, very easily, but they got in there. I think Colin Grant as well scored one of the goals of the season, I think. Literally the defender kicked it against him and ended up in the back of the net. It's a bit of a joke.
Yeah. It's very annoying when you're a defender and that happens, isn't it? It's a very Championship result, isn't it? Having that kind of turnaround so late in the game, it's just ridiculous. So well done to Cardiff. It is worth mentioning that Preston were down to 10 men for nearly the whole of the second half, but still a crazy turnaround from Eric Bullock's boys. Cardiff are 7th. I feel a bit like they're one of those teams who don't seem to win very often, but are somehow still high in the table, kind of like Preston, actually. I was just looking at the table earlier and was like, how are they both ahead of Sunderland? How has that happened? Anyway, some very pleasing news for you, Justin. Cardiff manager Errol Bullock has admitted he wants to sign Kiefer Moore in January. The striker is out of favour at Bournemouth, and Wales manager Rob Page has urged his players to find regular football before the Euros playoffs in March. And as soon as I saw this link, I instantly thought of you, because this is a Justin Peach move.
You'd never guess who. I've got a FM save at the moment. You'd never guess who I've just signed in January.
Who are you playing as?
It's Derby in second season in Championship. Some Big Kiefer Moore. Big Kiefer Moore.
Big Keith.
Always got to go to him, because not only is he a goal scorer, but he's a big number 9 as well. He's a typical number 9, but he's got a little bit more about him. And he scores goals. How often do you get a player of his size scoring 20 goals in a season, in a Championship season? How rare is that? Incredibly rare. It's not 2003 anymore, guys. He still does it. He's got quality. He single-handedly dragged Bournemouth into the Premier League. Maybe not single-handedly, alongside Dominic Solanke, but Scott Parker definitely made it difficult for them. Kiefer Moore is the man. And I'm not saying Cardiff will get promoted, but if Kiefer Moore's in that team, I'm putting my money. I'll keep my money in my pockets, but I will think about putting a bet on Cardiff going up.
So many levels there. At one point he was going to put money on it, and then he wasn't, then he wasn't. But undeniably this would be a fantastic signing. For me, Cardiff have been excellent at the back, but look a bit weak going forwards. Someone like Kiefer Moore can change all that. He's a fantastic striker who I'm disappointed we haven't seen more really at Championship level, because I feel like he's a bit wasted really as kind of a bench warmer in the Premier League,
Yeah.
with no disrespect intended, but he'd be a quality signing who would fit seamlessly into this team. So please make that happen. Liam Manning got his first win as Bristol City manager by beating Middlesbrough 3-2. A very funny own goal here by Zach Finer. I urge any own goals and gas fans to search that one out. It was a classic. But the Liam Manning revolution is underway, Justin.
It does feel like a bit of a revolution as well, because I felt like Bristol City weren't as predictable in this game as they would have been under Nigel Pearson. I'm not throwing any slight at Nigel Pearson, but I just felt the shackles a little bit were released from this team. And yes, they were a little bit open at times, but we saw a very productive side going forwards. They create plenty of chances, maybe like that clinical edge, but I think that will come. I was really impressed because Borough are a good side. We know this. We're not teaching anybody how to suck eggs. Borough are a very good side, so to create as often as he did and keep them at bay as well, yeah, showed two sides of his game there as a manager, and so did the players. It was a really impressive performance.
Yeah, and this is what I've been saying all along with Bristol City. You're getting a good, young, excited manager and everything can change. Brings new enthusiasm to the club. And this is a cracking result against one of the stronger teams in the league. I don't think they played incredibly. I will disagree with you there, Justin. Even Liam Manning admitted that it wasn't a great performance, really. But in terms of the result, it's a brilliant result, isn't it? So early on in his reign as well. And they have got loads of winnable games coming up, well into the new year, actually. So if they're winning here against one of the better teams in the league, then it's an exciting time for Bristol City as they get more and more used to how Manning wants to play. And dare I say it, don't think the playoffs is out of the question. It'll be very interesting to see where they are in a month's time, I'll say that for sure. Did you see that Bristol City have given the highest proportion of minutes to club-trained players out of every club in the Premier League and Championship this season? They've given more than a third of the possible minutes to club-trained players. And I just saw that just now. I thought that was an incredible stat.
It is incredible. I think a lot of credit should go to Brian Tinian. He does really good work in identifying and developing players. I think where he played a big role in identifying the Guernsey Grealish and Alex Scott, didn't he? And obviously Nigel Pearson deserves a lot of credit as well for bringing them through into the first team. It is a well-run club behind the scenes. Yes, they do lose money, but when it comes to having things in the right place for player development and opportunity, Bristol City is a good place to be. Change of mentality after that huge spending spree under Lee Johnson and Mark Ashton has been important. It's been a turning point for the club and turning point for the better.
Yeah, and you know what? You're right. Nigel Pearson deserves credit for giving these players a chance, because it's all well and good producing these players, but plenty of managers will still need quite a lot of persuading to give them a chance. So credit where credit's due there. For me, it's quite an underrated academy, really, because they've clearly done a lot of work in recent years to make it produce more, and now it's bearing the fruit of its labours, which is good to see. Coventry got their first win in 7 after a 3-0 victory away at Millwall. Greg's 3-word review about effing time. And we have been patiently waiting for Coventry to start getting the results that their performances deserve. And this is more like it, isn't it? Is this the much-needed turning point, Justin?
It has to be, hasn't it? It couldn't have sunk any lower than what they were based on the goals they were conceding in their form. But Mark Robbins nailed it again in his post-match press, and if the manager's done it, it's the sort of result that's been coming for Coventry, putting a hiding onto another team, and it really was. They've been good value for wins, just hasn't transpired that way because of wastefulness. I think that wasn't the case here. They took their chances. I think the irony there is the opener came from Haji Wright missing a chance he should have put away.
I was going to say that. It's so funny that when they score, they're still missing chances.
But Matty got a perfect poacher to be in the right position at the right time. And I've said it with Birmingham and other teams in this episode. Winning breeds confidence, and if you go away to Millwall and win 3-0, it's a big result. Although Millwall's home record is dreadful this season.
Well, I bloody hope it's the turning point, because I cannot recall too many occasions in the time that we've been doing this podcast, Justin, where we've seen a team playing so well but not getting results. They've just been unable to score, haven't they? And it does kind of feel like the flood doors have opened, but I suppose only time will tell in that respect. The thing is, you've got Ellis Sims and Haji Wright, two very good strikers who cost a lot of money. So surely it's only a matter of time before one of them finds their shooting boots. That's all they need, just one of them to find their shooting boots. If both of them find their shooting boots, then we're bloody laughing. But they've got a pretty tough run up coming into Christmas. If they find form now, it would be huge in salvaging what they can from this season after what's been undoubtedly a pretty dreadful start. Norwich have got back-to-back wins just after they beat QPR 1-0. One shot on target for Norwich here. Not convinced that this is the corner turns, but a valuable win for David Wagner nonetheless, considering their recent form. Let's talk QPR though, because they're stuck on 11 points after 17 games. Only 15 teams in Championship history have picked up less than 12 points after 17 games, and 13 of them were relegated. That's not a good omen for QPR Marty Cifuentes, is it?
It's not ideal. I think there's more context you need to bring into it. Obviously, the QPR are a disaster under Gareth Ainsworth, but what I will say is, and I will praise Marty Cifuentes, I've seen a lot more from his QPR team in the past 3 games than I saw in the past 7 or 8 months under Gareth Ainsworth. They look a lot more sharper, a lot more not organised, but comfortable in possession, and there's a bit more of an idea of how to get a result. I think in this game they just lacked a little bit of a cutting edge that you need, but I think that will come with confidence and time under Marty Cifuentes. It's just whether or not there's going to be enough time between now and the end of the season to salvage enough points to see them over the line. But for me, I've seen a big improvement, a massive improvement, but yeah, it was a low bar.
Yeah, it was a low bar, wasn't it? I think that's undeniable. I agree. They are playing better under Marty Cifuentes. They are reducing the number of chances that they're giving to opposition sides, which is a massive start. They have failed to win from Rotherham, Bristol City, and an out-of-form Norwich.
Yeah.
Scoring goals continues to be a problem. If we don't see a turn in results, then that 6-point gap to safety is only going to get bigger. They are quite fortunate, really, that the rest of the bottom 4 are pretty shit. Otherwise, it would be looking a bit bleak right now. So, look, there's more signs of encouragement at QPR, I would say, than other teams in the bottom 4. It's quite a low bar, but there's certainly encouraging sides there, and that's all you can really ask for at this very early stage under Cifuentes. Plymouth got just their second win in 9 games by beating Sunderland 2-0, otherwise known as the Justin Peach derby, because that's the trip he's going to be doing come the end of the season with the way things are going in his midweek predictions. Ryan's 3-word review for Plymouth: great defensive display. Paul says much needed win. And this is a cracking result for Plymouth, isn't it? They've been a side who have played much better than their position in the table suggests, I would say. So we should enjoy this when it actually happens. Morgan Whittaker scored a screamer, and he's just having a ridiculous season, isn't he, Justin?
£1 million, ladies and gentlemen. £1 million. That's what it gets you. This unbelievably gifted footballer who has
Why
a grace.
Did you stutter on the word footballer?
Because I was trying to work in ballet dancer into that statement before saying footballer. It didn't quite work, or didn't quite transpire in my head, and it definitely didn't articulate that way. But you see my point. He's just good, and I don't want to sound like a broken record when I keep banging the same drum as to why I like Morgan Whittaker. It's obvious, and he scored a brilliant goal here. He's a fantastic individual, well-grounded person, and he's got so much quality. He's going to cost the team £10-15 million at some point. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, and you're right. That fee in the summer is just an absolute bargain. I think we can probably wrap up signing of the season already, can't we? Because it's just unbelievable. Even when they made that signing, though, and we were both saying it was an absolute bargain, weren't we? I never expected him to do as well as he is doing right now. And I mean, think back to it, Justin, when he was at Derby, he looks a very different player to that now, doesn't he?
Well, the thing is, the issue we had at Derby is I don't think he was physically ready for it. But a couple of loan spells in League One, playing in a team that gets the best out of you with a good manager who's clearly got quality in developing young players. And you only got to look at the impact of was it Luke Cundle and Finnez in this game. It's a really good place to be, and it's a good place to go and play football because you get your opportunity. You get your opportunity to express yourself as well. It's a good place, Plymouth, and Morgan Whittaker's developing as he should be.
Yeah, he's the pick of the bunch, isn't he, from this really impressive crop of young players. And I mean, for any player to be doing as well as he is this season is impressive. For a 22-year-old, It's remarkable. And he is providing a bit of a headache for us in our halfway team of the season, isn't he? Because you've got Jack Clark and Crescencio Somerville, who have both been two of the best players in the league. How can we possibly leave out Morgan Whittaker, though? It's proven to be a bit of a nightmare for us. But if he carries on, Plymouth might struggle to keep a hold of him, just on the way that he's playing based purely on that. Blackburn won 3-0 away at Stoke. Danny's 3-word review, same old Stoke. Ree says, absolutely fucking awful. Loud boos after this one, which is very Stoke, isn't it? They've just gone 5 unbeaten and lose one, and we get loud boos at the end of this game. Deary me. But a huge result for Blackburn, who are very much unpredictable, aren't they? No draws, just wins and losses. That's what we're seeing from them this season. And Hull came from 2 goals down to draw 2-2 away at Swansea. Swansea reportedly set to sign Yannick Bolasie on a free, which is fair enough. Like to see that. Let's do the polls, Justin. This is the part of the show where we have 3 questions that we give to the listeners on Twitter. Just want to get their thoughts on everything that happens in the Championship. So, the first question we asked was this. Who is staying up out of these 4? Huddersfield, QPR, Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, QPR. I think they got the most quality out of those teams. Again, just Elias Chair tax, isn't it? That's all it is.
Yeah, I think it's undeniable. QPR have got the most quality out of those teams. Will it be enough for them to stay up? I don't know. Personally, I would go Huddersfield, and that's what the listeners have said as well. 49% have said Huddersfield, 27% QPR, 20% Rotherham, 4% Sheffield Wednesday. Poor Sheffield Wednesday. Which of these teams is the most likely to get into the playoffs? Just selected 4 mid-table-ish sides, Justin, and to see which one can spring out the crop. We went with Blackburn, Cardiff, Hull and Preston. Which one of them?
Ooh, I want to say Hull, but if Cardiff bring in Kiefer Moore, I've got to go Cardiff. So at the minute I'll say Hull. Ask me again in a month's time when Kiefer Moore's in a Cardiff shirt and I'll say Cardiff.
Okay then. 36% said Hull, 30% said Blackburn, 18% said Cardiff, 16% said Preston. Preston are the only team out of that bunch actually in the top 6. So, yeah, there you go. And finally, is it too early for Christmas songs? Yes or no?
Well, yeah, it is. It absolutely is. I don't think you can be throwing out Christmas songs right now. I know people do. That's absolutely fair. I know you have. It's an absolute disgrace. You have an apt name for your Christmas playlist, don't you?
Yes. So I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast before, but what I do with my playlists on Spotify is I name them after random former Premier League players. So for Christmas, obviously, it's Roque Santa Cruz. Some other ones, Bernardo Corradi, Joel Campbell. They're mainly based on places where I've been. So, for example, when I went to Mexico earlier this year, well, we went to Mexico, actually, Javier Hernandez, of course.
Okay.
Paul Stalteri, Bruno Ngotti, Jean-Alain Boomsong.
Bruno Ngotti.
I've called one Joe Max Moore. I'm not really sure why, but it just felt right, Justin.
Do you have a mood playlist? I know it's going slightly off track. You know, if you and the other half are trying to get in the mood.
For that, I go straight to Ahmed Higazi every single time.
He's a handsome chap, isn't
he? What was the result of the poll? People are asking. Yes, 59% of people said it's too early for Christmas songs. 41% said no, and I'm on board with that 41%. Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. So Justin is going to ask me to name 8 of a certain subject. All I've got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if he were to say, name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, and I would say Villa, that's 1 down, and then Newcastle, that's another down. But if I were to say Weymouth, I would lose a life. So all I need to do is give all 8 answers without losing all my lives. And you can get involved in the fun, dear listener, by sending in your Hateful Eights for either Justin and I to answer. Send them in to secondtierpod@gmail.com and you could get a shout out the next time we do a Hateful Eight. Alternatively, you could just play along at home and let us know how many you get. Justin, who is this Hateful Eight from?
It's from Dan Lindsay, whom I think is a Sheffield Wednesday fan, because he's given us a bit of a cheeky one this week. He wants to know, or wants you to know, or wants you to give us the last 8 teams who have finished bottom of the Championship over the last, 8 years. So, yeah, cheeky one, as I say. It's a hard one. I found it difficult when I was going through it in my head before this episode.
I reckon I can get this. Yeah. All right. How many lives are you giving me?
I'm going to give you 2 lives because I say it's a cheeky one. I don't want to be too generous though, because you are a championship expert in quote marks.
So-called championship experts. Okay, I'll start off with Rotherham because they've had a couple of stinking seasons.
They have not as many as you think. Well, actually, they have, but not as many not as bad as finishing bottom of the table. 16-17, they finished bottom of the table with 20 odd points. I think it was the season Alan Stubbs was in charge. Not a good one.
Is that the last one then? I can't do the maths.
That was 16-17. 16-17
Yeah.
season. What? Yeah.
Is that the least recent one?
The least recent one? No.
Yeah.
You got a year after that.
Year after that.
Or year before that, sorry.
Well, Wigan finished bottom last season after a series of points deductions.
You are correct. Sean Maloney did his very best to firefight. Not enough.
I'm trying to remember now who got relegated the season before, and I think Barnsley were bottom, weren't they?
Yeah, Barnsley did their very best to be the worst team in the division, given that Derby suffered a 21-point deduction. They finished bottom.
I was going to say Derby, but then remember they actually did all right, considering that. Fine, okay. I will throw in now. I remember Bolton and Ipswich, when they both got relegated, they were both honking very good bets each week to bet on whoever was playing them. I can't remember which one finished bottom, though. I'm going to throw Ipswich at you.
You'd be right. Bolton finished a point ahead in that season. It was the 18-19 season, so it was tight.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ipswich were one of those teams. I think Paul Hurst was manager, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
That's where he finished the season. Yeah,
he definitely didn't. Paul Lambert finished, didn't he? Now I'm struggling. I will throw Peterborough at you. They've been relegated a couple of times.
You'd be incorrect. They have been relegated a couple of times, but not the worst team in the division. You've lost a life. You've got one remaining, Ryan.
This is harsh, not giving me an extra life.
Well, that's Simon Grayson. He's not feeling nice today.
No. Is Sheffield Wednesday in there?
They are. The 2021 season. Wycombe were bottom of that season for a very long period of time. I think until the last day of the season, actually. And then Wednesday finished bottom.
Yeah, that sounds right. How many have I got left?
Got 2 left. 3 left, actually. You've got three left. This is a tricky couple, or tricky few, I think.
Yeah, I'm possibly going to have to tap out here, I think, because I'm seriously struggling. Oh, Sunderland had a shite season, didn't they?
Yes. They finished bottom behind Burton and Barnsley that season. Bolton finished just outside of the relegation zone. It was a shocker in the 2017-18 campaign.
And Chris Coleman nearly had a fight with a fan.
He's definitely not a prick.
He's got kids. I'm going to have to tap out just now. I can't think of any more.
You're missing Hull. The Grant McCann season where
Did they finish bottom that season?
They finished bottom. They finished bottom in the 1920 season. It's incredible, isn't it? They were, 10th?
Then they finished on the edge of the playoffs.
On the edge of the playoffs.
I knew they had an absolute collapse, but I didn't realise it was that bad. Jesus.
Yeah, it was that bad. And the other one was Bolton in the 15-16 season, a long time ago.
Oh, I said Bolton.
Yeah, you said Ipswich.
Yeah, I didn't think Bolton got relegated again. I forgot they came back up. Oh dear, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's been Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight, and this has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday because we've got midweek games. God, look at that. You have the international break and then suddenly you got games everywhere. Crazy. So we'll be back again on Thursday to look back at all those midweek games. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you are listening to us on, helps us go a long way as a podcast and we would appreciate it greatly. So thank you for doing that. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.